Millions of Americans know Julius Caesar as the man who got stabbed in the Senate, but almost no one knows the part of his story that should terrify every modern democracy, because Caesar didn't destroy the Roman Republic with swords. He destroyed it with strategy. And the way he did, it feels uncomfortably familiar today. Before he became a symbol of absolute power, Caesar was just a young aristocrat with a mountain of debt so huge. Even an American with 10 credit cards would call it extreme. He wasn't born unstoppable. He built himself piece by piece. Using charm, timing, and a talent for manipulating public opinion, he figured out early that the path to power wasn't through Rome's elites. It was through the people. So he walked their streets, dressed like them, spoke like them, and won their loyalty faster than the Senate could understand what was happening. And that loyalty made him dangerous. Not because he held power, but because he could take it from anyone else. The Senate reacted exactly how threatened elites always react. They tried to humiliate him, prosecute him, and block every position he aimed for. But here's the pattern interrupt. Their attacks only boosted him. The more they pushed him down, the higher he climbed. Caesar wasn't just fighting politics, he was studying it. And soon, he made the alliance that would shake the entire Roman world. Caesar, Crassus, Pompey. 3 men who controlled money, military, and the masses, not friends, not allies, but a political machine so powerful. The Senate was forced to obey them. With their backing, Caesar secured the governorship of Gaul, a position Rome expected him to waste, or worse, lose instead. He turned Gaul into the proving ground of his legend. He entered the region with an underfunded army, facing tribes that could summon tens of thousands of warriors, facing winters that could freeze entire legions, facing political enemies back home, waiting for him to fail. He didn't fail. He reinvented warfare. Caesar used speed when others used caution. He used psychology when others used force. He used surprise when others used tradition. And every time he wrote about his victories, he made sure Rome heard the version of the story that helped him most. His commentaries were reports. They were political advertisements, designed to make Rome believe he was invincible. The result? For 8 straight years, Caesar grew more popular, more feared, more unstoppable. And by the time he finished conquering Gaul, the Senate realized they had created a threat greater than any foreign enemy. Because Caesar wasn't just returning to Rome with soldiers. He was returning with loyalty. And that is far more dangerous than any army. Everything changed with a single order. One command from the Senate, a demand Caesar could not accept, and his response would change world history forever. The order came from Rome like a death sentence. Lay down your command, disband your army, return home alone. In the Senate's eyes, Caesar was finished, a powerful general stripped of protection, a man they could finally arrest, destroy, or erase. But Caesar understood the game better than they did. He knew that walking into Rome unarmed wasn't obedience, it was suicide. So he paused, looked at the map, looked at his loyal soldiers, and made the decision that would shock the world. He marched toward Rome instead of away from it. And when he reached the Rubicon, a small river with a massive consequence, he stopped. Crossing it with an army was illegal, a declaration of civil war, a point of no return. For a moment, Caesar said nothing. He simply stared at the water, knowing that once he stepped forward, there was no going back. And then, in one of the most dramatic decisions in world history, he crossed. Just like that, the Roman Republic entered its most dangerous chapter. And it wasn't the enemies outside Rome that caused it. It was the politicians inside it. The Senate panicked. Pompey fled the city. And the leaders who claimed they were protecting the Republic abandoned it in a matter of hours. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment Caesar walked into Rome, he didn't seize power. He walked into a power vacuum. Caesar expected a massive battle, but instead he found empty streets, terrified senators, and a government with no plan. So he took control without fighting a single major battle. Pattern interrupt. Imagine expecting Avengers-level chaos, but everyone else already ran home. But Caesar knew the calm wouldn't last. Pompey was regrouping in Greece. And this time, Caesar wouldn't be fighting politicians. He would be fighting Rome's strongest general. a man who once called him friend. Their armies finally clashed at Pharsalus, and what happened there shocked the ancient world. Pompey had the numbers. Pompey had the advantage. Pompey had the support of senators who believed Caesar couldn't win. But Caesar had something even stronger: experience, speed, and soldiers who would follow him into hell. The battle was brutal. Dust everywhere, shields clashing, thousands falling within minutes. And then Caesar did what he always did. He adapted, shifted, struck at the exact moment Pompey hesitated. Pompey's army shattered, the Senate's hopes collapsed, and the Republic's last line of defense evaporated in a single afternoon. In that moment, Caesar didn't just win a battle. He won Rome. Pompey fled, senators begged for mercy, and Caesar continued his march across the Mediterranean, crushing resistance faster than anyone could regroup. In Egypt, the chaos deepened. Caesar became entangled in a political war between Cleopatra and her brother, a conflict that would pull him into one of the most controversial alliances in ancient history. But here's where America never tells the real truth. Caesar wasn't just helping Cleopatra. He was securing grain routes, military ports, and a future dynasty, a strategy so advanced modern geopoliticians still study it today. Caesar returned to Rome not as a general, but as a living legend, a man the Senate feared, the people adored, and the army worshipped. But beneath all the celebrations, one question grew louder. What happens when one man becomes bigger than the Republic itself? And that question would lead directly to the final chapter of his life, where admiration, fear, and betrayal would collide in the most famous political assassination in history. When Caesar returned to Rome, he walked into a city that no longer saw him as a general, but as a force of nature. Crowds filled the streets. People shouted his name, and the Senate, the same Senate that once tried to destroy him, now bowed in his presence. They gave him titles no Roman had ever held. They gave him powers no republic had ever allowed. And slowly, almost quietly, Rome's democracy began to fade. Not because Caesar demanded it, but because everyone was too afraid to oppose him, or too eager to benefit from his rise. Caesar pushed massive reforms. He reorganized the calendar. He rebuilt cities. He erased debts. He expanded citizenship. He did in months what Rome had failed to do in decades. But here's the subtle truth America rarely talks about. Caesar wasn't trying to become a tyrant. He was trying to save a collapsing system, a system already corrupted, already unstable, already breaking from inside. And that, ironically, is what made him even more dangerous, because the more good he did, the more powerful he became, and the more powerful he became, the more the Senate feared him. They didn't see a reformer. They saw a king in disguise, and for Romans, the word king was a nightmare, a curse, a threat to everything the Republic claimed to stand for. Rumors started spreading, whispers in the Senate halls, paranoia behind closed doors. What if Caesar refuses to step down? What if he becomes permanent ruler? What if the Republic is already dead? Fear grew, and fear, when mixed with politics, becomes lethal. A group of senators, including some who once loved him, decided that killing Caesar was the only way to save Rome. They told themselves they were protecting freedom, protecting democracy, protecting the Republic. But deep down, many were protecting something far simpler: their own power. The day of the assassination, Caesar walked into the Senate, unguarded, confident, focused, unaware that almost every man around him had already rehearsed the attack. When the first stab came, he didn't fall. He didn't cry out. He fought. But then he saw the faces, familiar faces, men he trusted, men he had forgiven, men he had raised to power. And the final betrayal, the one history never forgets, came from someone he considered like a son. That moment broke him more than the blades. Caesar collapsed on the Senate floor, surrounded by men who believed they had saved the Republic. But here's the twist, the part almost no American textbook emphasizes. It destroyed it. Rome didn't celebrate. Rome didn't stabilize. Rome fell into chaos, civil war after civil war. Until one man took the throne, Caesar never claimed Augustus. The first emperor of the Republic died not when Caesar lived, but when Caesar died, and the men who killed him accidentally did the one thing they feared most. They created an empire. So the real story America rarely tells is this: Caesar didn't end the Roman Republic. The Senate did, through fear, through miscalculation, through a desperate attempt to stop a man they no longer understood. Caesar's rise was extraordinary, but his fall was a warning. A warning about what happens when leaders gain too much influence. A warning about what happens when politicians fear losing control. And a warning about how democracies collapse, not with invasion, but with decisions made inside their own halls. If history teaches anything, it's that the line between savior and threat is thinner than we think, and Rome learned that line through the rise and the murder of Julius Caesar. If you want more stories hidden behind empires' wars and leaders who changed the world, make sure you subscribe, because the next story will show you a side of history America almost never talks about.